seriously fucking feel like people, like, don't fucking understand metal at all. Alright. As somebody who once got to specifically ask Ozzy Osbourne when he was on K-Rock, and I called in during the Black Sabbath reunion in the 90s and asked him about his faith because of some of the messages in his music. And, he said he just didn't really talk about that kind of thing, right? And I just kind of like let it go at that point because I'm a teenager who's feeling very awkward about speaking and things like that. I was not good at it. I didn't. I was so uncomfortable. I had to go through several levels of cringe to get to this glorious bastard that you see before you. But anyway, look, I think it's fucking simple. I think that Ozzy experimented with all manner of shit. He went through, if you ever watched Metalocalypse, Murderface, he has that one episode where he's looking for God because of like a near-death experience or whatever, right? And so he's going from through all these different religious organizations, obvious ones like Satanist, and trying a couple of different odd ones, so on and so forth. I think he ultimately just like fucking burns everything down or something. I don't know. He chooses none and just goes back to being himself. But that's also my point, is that Ozzy, I think, just did the same thing. I think Ozzy's just free, man. That's just all it is. It's just free. It's just, it's just like, I lived my wild fucking desires. Look, if he's anything, he might be like he might be a low-key Thelemite. There might be a lot of Thelema going on, low-key. A lot of Thelemites are fucking wonderful people. Wonderful people. A lot of people have no idea what they're talking about with certain things, other than not liking what these persons' works, their intellectual properties in distribution, have done putting things into the world, right? Which is coming from the inflated insecurities within the Jupiter correspondences in their charts, right? That's where this is coming from. It's a great deal of psychological projection from the existential Dasein, from the world. It's the world serpent, right? Because Ozzy, like, people don't understand eccentric artists. It's just like, Ozzy was just fucking Ozzy, man. You grew up around things. It's just like, alright, these Christian things are all for me, but I don't really quote scripture because you're going to take it the wrong way, but I do perhaps keep some scripture the way I think of it in my heart. I don't know, Jesus is there, right? A lot of people are like that. So, look, man, Ozzy's just fucking free, right? Ozzy is just the freedom of America. He's a Brit who wanted to live the last of his days American, in America, without ever compromising his gorgeous British accent, right? Who would want to? because that was a way that America was and had treated performing artists. And the only reason why you're asking these questions, because he is not the first and the last artist to come by who may confuse you as such, right? It's just that he comes from a familiar world. He comes from that in-between world of the dying traditions of the generation that took us through World War II, and the generation that kind of wrecked the place in the 60s. And then here I am with this band called Earth, and things are getting kind of dark on Earth. So this Black Earth, see what I did there? Needs its religion to be black like it is, because that's what the artist does. He's trying to paint a picture of something you can't see that you ought to be worried about. And Christians cannot deny that there was a warning that they agreed with. It's inflected in war pigs. It's inflected in many things across the tails. And you're just going to have to live with that, right? Because, if he was a Christian of liberal persuasion, there's plenty of churches by this point in time where he probably could have been invited in, and nobody would have said, Ozzy, change a thing about you, because, they're going through LGBTQ stuff, and so these churches, I said many, many years ago, why don't the gays just make a Church of the Rainbow? Well, a bunch of churches decided that the only way they were going to survive was to become churches of the Rainbow. So they did that. So then they got their Church of the Rainbow, and you can still go there today. I mean, church is for sinners after all, right? That's the funny and insulting thing about it. It's just like you're a gay person trying so hard to get into church, right? But of course they're just like, but your sinful ways, right? Because you're going in there as a proud person, right? And so then the church makes compromises. And that's because the church has been wrong about how it handles the human condition. It was wrong, it made a less worse manner of handling it than it did in the days of the institution, the dark ages of asylums. And so it's a strange, isn't it a strange thing? Isn't it a strange thing that we ask this question, right? Because people like to hear in a bio, like, oh, when he was a member of X, Y, and Z synagogue or church, right? This was his favorite pastor, whatever, right? Like, people like to hear all that stuff in the biographies and eulogies. You may not precisely get that. Ozzy may in fact be Catholic, because Zakk Wylde is the godfather of what's his face? Jack. I think it's Jack. It's one of the younger kids from Sharon's marriage, from the Sharon side of the family. So Christians are asking the wrong question. You know, they're sitting there like, because they want to be able to talk about this guy under certain terms, and it's really funny. They don't have something on record that allows them to, so they just have to fall into, you know, judging his moral character, right? Because of his influence on culture, they're looking, they're trying to understand something because of how he has been an influence on the culture. He's been an influence on me, for fuck's sake. I discovered Ozzy and Black Sabbath as a young man, about the time that that Osmosis had happened. I had missed the boat on the glory years through the 80s and maybe like early 90s. But by the time Osmosis hit, I mean, it might have been before Osmosis, but maybe Osmosis was like the first album that I bought. I didn't have a great deal of means to getting stuff like that. I wasn't very savvy on like wanting to get like my hands on a bazillion freaking like, mixtapes, because I didn't want to be crazy with disorganized stuff that was poorly labeled or whatever. There's a lot of reasons why I wasn't completely and absolutely immersed in heavy metal to the point where I would have just not been paying attention to it at all. It's absolutely, it's really something, the amount of people that they find their world that they like to be in, and they only look within that, and they only look at what is influencing it, changing it, threatening it, so on and so forth, but they can't see any further than that. They have to appeal to what they hear in the rumor universe is saying. It makes sense. That's another rational conclusion you can draw about, like, oh, why is there fraud in the NFL? Oh man, are you saying it's got something to do with corrupt state politics that is then also enabled by the federal government? Man, that sounds like a big lawsuit or something, right? And it's not really earth-shattering. It might, if something like that were to trigger, I mean, whatever, it would change the NFL forever. But hey, I just don't want things being laundered. Just stop with the money laundering. Right? USA, big money laundering operation. So anyway, Ozzy. Ozzy's just Ozzy, man. That's just the way it is. It's like he might have been more agnostic. He might have been a deist of a gothic nature. He could have been a lot of things. You just want to know where his soul contract is. His soul contract is none of your business. Whether he's in heaven or hell is none of your business. What did the performing artist's legacy leave for you? Or do you just want to investigate the crimes of a corpse that are not related to anything and that probably wasn't a cover-up, but now you have to believe there's a cover-up because you know that things are corrupt? Or whatever you want to do to say that somebody was protecting Ozzy Osbourne because he killed a guy. Right? Like, what are you looking for? What the fuck are you looking for? Who cares? Nobody cares. Right? We don't have the energy to care about every accusation. And you need to have a corpus delicti. You have to have like a body of the crime. You have to have a subject that is a victim, someone who was there to charge the prosecution with the offense that was done unto them personally. Right? That's the fuck you're looking for. Right? Some personal issue. Right? Otherwise, you've got the trail of the persona performing artist known as Ozzy Osbourne. And the only question that matters is, what is the moral character cultivated by the legacy that he established? Do you find Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath fans, and associative collaborating projects Ozzy's ever done, do you consider all those people to have made the quality of life on this realm worse or better for having left it here? Do you see good in it? Does it make you feel anything? Are you rejecting the inherent value of a thing because you're afraid of it, because your mind hasn't figured out what's wrong with it yet, and therefore you cannot speak well of it? Like, if you're just judging every goddamn human being on Earth as to whether you think they meet the approval of Ezekiel or some fucking bullshit, then I don't think you have a business having a public opinion. You can go fucking just bitch and complain in your inner church circle, because your Bible heroes are not helping anybody. They're just there to make you not completely bottom the fuck out until you figure out how to fucking fix your shit. So that way, if you die, you'll have some sort of assurance of something. Just because you're not sure if the way that you have lived is in approval for what has been set forth in how the laws of this fucking life force energy works. So what happens to the continuity of you and your experience of yourself after the continuity of living here comes to an end? And it is fascinating see how Christians always reject general reincarnation. It's like reincarnation is only something you get from the Meshiach or whatever. Perhaps certain prophets. So, listen. If, just like, if you're gonna sit there and you gotta ask yourself, why is it important? Like, do you want to have a fucking conversation honoring the dead or not? You already know what kind of conversation you really want to have. Stop lying to yourself. Stop pussyfooting with your audience. Don't lie to your audience. And just have the conversation that will reveal to us your level of being informed of your own faith's doctrines upon your soul and your knowledge of the artist in question, which is going to be complicated because I don't believe that all the lyrics that Ozzy ever sung in Ozzy Osbourne were all his lyrics. So then you have to ask yourself about the influence of other members of the band who he may be entrusting with various amounts of writing. This can be seen in obvious manners if you've ever listened to any of Zakk Wylde's material and you hear the song structure and you realize that's really good, and I can see how that could be an Ozzy thing. Right? Like, not that far off from being just an Ozzy Osbourne song. Oh. We're still there. Let's get some distance. Thank you. Alright. So, yeah, that's really all I gotta say about that. Just like, you gotta not have that fucking conversation, man. It's a cringy conversation. Because if you're not going to sit there and say, well, I have actually bothered to listen to X, Y, and Z personal interviews, like personal life conversation fucking interviews with Ozzy and people that were related to Ozzy or business partners with Ozzy, and I have read 1, 2, or 3 fucking books about the band or about Ozzy, like a biography or autobiography or whatever, then you can't fucking like have all that conversation, right? Just, you're free. And I'm not picking on any of my friends who have had that conversation, because there's a lot more people than just my friends that I can think of. When you're celebrated as such, when you are as successful as you are in the world, it's a reward for what you did. Just like, you get the deal. You get the deal for doing the job, and you don't always do certain jobs. it's ugly business. Sometimes it could be as much as, let's just say that they held over Ozzy's head for many, many years some assault charge that they made disappear. Um, and they never had to use it, and then it became a moot point, and so it disappeared. Right? Or say, there was some drug charge, but it was for marijuana, and marijuana is legal now. So they fucking dump it. They can't use it anymore. Marijuana is legal, and nobody. There's no statute of limitation. I mean, there's a statute of limitations on possession like that. Just stupid shit like that. You know, that shit doesn't serve anymore. It's not the right context in which Ozzy Osbourne lived his life. It's not the right context in which Ozzy Osbourne wanted his life portrayed. But you obviously can see the manner in which all things he did, were to make other people happy, and to be sometimes the life of the party, so on and so forth. And that's all there is to it. Fundamentalist Christians and other kinds of radical religious groups they want to be away from it all, right? They're, it's the Essenes. You've got the end of days cults, which recruit, and then you've got the families that get together because they feel that end of days upon the horizon. And that's kind of our circumstances. Anyway, what's up, man? Osborne is from Old Norse, as being meaning God bear. Yeah, Bjorn, born, Osborne. Yeah, so God bear, but like it would be Os, like AS, like Aesir or AES, right? So it's the sky bear, right? So he would be a very his family line would have an Ursa Major energy to it, right? He might have come from noble blood. He may have been of the Jarl caste when the Osbornes originally were. I mean, if my fucking line goes back to a Templar level, then I may have that kind of lineage as well. Let's see here. I need to find a quaint little parking spot because I need to get out of my swimming trunks before I pick up in the grocer. Let's see. It's very strange that they put the parking farther away than it ought to be for the handicaps. But this place is kind of an uneven ground anyway. Okay. I'll see you guys.